Hello and welcome to another episode of Growing Up B2B. I'm your host, Ed Delia, second generation president of Delia Associates, the growth advisory and activation firm focused exclusively on family governed B2B companies. Today, I'm joined by Katie Rucker, a second generation owner of MacKenzie and founder of NextGen Collaborative. Katie works at the intersection of strategic foresight, customer insight, and family business leadership. Through MacKenzie, she helps organizations navigate growth, succession, leadership transitions, and change. Through NextGen Collaborative, she's dedicated to helping the next generation of family business leaders find their own voice while honoring the legacy they've inherited. More recently, Katie and her team released a 2026 Family Business Perception Study, surveying more than 1,000 Americans to better understand how the public views family businesses. The findings reveal a fascinating gap between how family businesses see themselves and how they're perceived by customers, employees, and their communities. This is a conversation that's going to be all about leadership, succession, innovation, perception, and what the future may hold for family-owned businesses. Katie, welcome to Growing Up B2B.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm super excited for our chat today.
I have been excited for this since we set the date. So let's dive in. First, for our listeners who may not be familiar with MacKenzie or perhaps NextGen Collaborative, tell us in your own words what each entity does and the problems they're aiming to solve.
Yeah, so MacKenzie is MacKenzie Corp. So it's a family name. I'm third generation Catherine MacKenzie, though it's not my maiden name. That kind of came down. I walked down the aisle with my dad in full kilt to bagpipes. So we are Scottish by nature. And so that is our second generation. I run my company, Run MacKenzie, with my twin sister. We took it over from our dad. He started in 1985. We are really a customer insights or human-centered insights, we like to say, and strategic foresight consultancy. So we help brands really more deeply understand the humans on the other side of the products and services that they offer, and then help them reimagine what the future can look like. And then Jenny and I started NextGen Collaborative 3 years ago. We kind of say, really with the heart and intent to be able to help Katie and Jenny from, who we were 15 years ago when we took over the family business. And that really is focused again on leadership, legacy, and possibility. And I think you clearly said it. We'd love to be able to inspire people to think beyond the legacy and maybe the family business that they inherit and be more intentional about the future that they're trying to design.
I love that. And as a quick aside, I am the proud father of twins, so that's pretty cool. So, being a next gen yourself, like me, how would you say that background, and your personal experience influenced how you work with and engage with other family businesses?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that you can totally understand this. We have deeply appreciate and respect what we were given the opportunity to be stewards of. And it's an interesting thing because you understand the weight of that legacy, but then there's the challenge of being able to say, how do I also honor it in a way that keeps it relevant for the future? And there's a tension there, right? And so really a lot of that is how have we evolved MacKenzie over the years? Again, we've been in business for 42 years. So the business world and the market landscape has fundamentally changed. And then the work that really we're inspired to do at NextGen is being able to help people navigate those conversations of changing the family business to make sure it stays relevant going forward is actually not a bad thing. It actually, I think now, and it took me a long time to be able to feel it, I feel like I'm actually honoring our dad's legacy better by making sure that it's still relevant to be able to move on for future generations. If we hold too tightly on to what it was or what we originally inherited, it may not actually continue because it may not be relevant in the market anymore. So we kind of shifted the way that we look at that, how we show up in the honoring of the process of what we inherited from him.
And that's a great perspective because that process of reinvention, I think, has to happen, right? As each next generation comes to the leadership position, that's changed. Customers have changed. Supply chain partners have changed. Everything has changed around the world. So to think that the company could stand still and continue to grow and sustain that continuity of prosperity, I think is a stretch.
And it's hard. It's a hard tension, right? Because
Yeah.
again, if our parents, their identity is a lot of times baked into what they created or what they did during their running of the organization. And so it's a balance to be able to do it in a delicate manner, to be able to say honor what you did, and it's not showing disrespect when we want to do the change, right? So there's a lot of, I mean, I always say everybody has family and everybody has some sort of work. We just decide to be those overachievers who mix it all together in one building. So
So, so to turn that telescope back around on you as a next gen yourself, when you think about your own journey with your sister in the family business,
Mhm.
what when you look back, what decision was there one major decision that had a huge impact on the growth or the direction of the business under your watch and your
Yeah,
sister?
we for a good 5, 6 years, we were really still doing things the same way that dad was. And I would go home and say to my husband, like, this place is sucking the soul out of me. And that is not good for anything. And I finally realized that I was trying, and Jenny struggled with some of the same things, maybe not to the same extent, but we were trying to be our dad and we were trying to do things the way that he was because we again thought that that's how to honor things for him. But I realized that that wasn't, in the end, he would actually didn't want that, right? He wanted his kids to be happy and he wanted his kids to really be excited about what they were doing every day. And so we finally had to get to the time of saying, it's time to do something different. We got to rip the Band-Aid off and go for it. And also it's finally just making this decision, which I think happens for any, I'm going to say business owner, or entrepreneur, of saying, what is the worst potential scenario of what could happen? That kind of plays into some of the futures work that we do now. And so I always now realize that I was thinking with the futures mindset. And I thought, okay, worst case scenario, we go bankrupt, like we blow up the family business, and that would be kind of shameful at like Thanksgiving dinner. But I was young enough at that time to be able to go get another job. And I had like a pretty decent resume and I had some good skills. And I was like, I think I could actually live through the worst case scenario. And so I think that was really like a big moment for us, that then we shifted and really opened ourselves up to being able to do things that lit us up and matched with what the market was needing. But you have to, as a business owner, be passionate about what you're doing. And if you're not, it's not going to be successful for anybody, right? It's hard running a business, right? So we got to have a little excitement to get us out of bed every day.
Yeah. And finding that balance, I think, from honoring your dad and his legacy and honoring, to some degree the way that he did or would have done things, but
Mhm.
also recognizing that things change, people change, times change, and maybe that doesn't work so well anymore.
Mhm.
So finding that and we always talk about that on the show a lot, is that balance between honoring the legacy while still honoring the present and the future.
Yeah, and I think a really interesting opportunity and like an opportunity to see things differently is when we think about honoring the legacy. And I know for myself, and then through people I talk in the family business space, and I actually run a NextGen peer group for a family business center out of South Dakota. And I know that we've talked about it there, is when we think about that legacy, a lot of times that's tied to like the services or like the what we do, right? But one of the things that Jenny and I really have spent a large amount of our time is that digging underneath that. Why did our dad start the business? And for him, it was this desire and this like curiosity, these asking these questions and these wanting to be able to come in and like reimagine how things are being done, and being innovative and thinking differently, and being like a strategic partner or a thought leader in certain types of things. And so we actually realized that we can actually be doing, like, bringing his legacy, his core values, and his main key characteristics. We can actually, that is the driving force of what we're doing today, even though we're doing very different services. And so
Mm.
we actually realize that we are honoring his legacy, that we don't have to keep doing certain things that he used to be doing. It actually is honoring the what made him special, his like secret sauce, and that secret
Yeah.
sauce isn't the tangible deliverable. It actually is like the cool like parts of him that we get jazzed up to be able to go back to him at like Sunday dinner and say, oh my God, I was super, like, we fixed this problem for somebody, and he geeks out about it. And it's something he doesn't even know what the solution is, like, but he's just excited that we're tinkering on ideas with people, which is what geeks him out, you know? So I
Yeah.
think it's letting go a little bit of maybe a certain way of thinking that we have to define legacy and realizing that it's actually how do we honor the values and the inner parts of them versus the what they did.
Understood.
Mhm.
So a theme that I saw when I was reading some of your background and your work was this idea of helping leaders slow down in order
Mhm.
to think more clearly. So
Mhm.
when we bring that concept in today's very fast moving with AI, it seems to be accelerating on top of acceleration.
Yeah.
In this fast-paced environment, why is slowing down becoming, in your mind, something of a competitive advantage
Mhm.
for a leader?
Well, I mean, the kind of the simplest and the best way to say it is like, let's say like you're in a conversation and you're just spewing off the answers. At some point you're going to stop and be like, "Ooh, I might have just said something I shouldn't have said," right? Or asked something, those kinds of things. I think the biggest thing is right now when we're moving so fast, we're then making decisions about what's like right there in front of us. But when we can slow down, we actually can like open the aperture to be able to see more possibilities or more opportunities. When we slow down a little bit more, I like to say, our minds, the faster we want to go, our mind's going to be going to certain mental models, certain ways of doing things. But when we slow down, we actually say, is that the right way to do it? Like, we got to clear off, like you're wearing your glasses, like we got to clean off the glasses, but we got to pause to be able to do that. And then you can actually sometimes see things differently. And
Mm,
it is counterintuitive to the way that the world is going right now. When we allow ourselves the space to slow down, different ideas, different potential solutions, they can start to emerge that if we're not holding space for that. And I think the other big thing about slowing down is being able to then also hold space for a variety of different voices to come into the room. And that's the
mm,
big thing with us from the foresight side. We
mm,
really encourage the concept of participatory foresight is as you are designing a new version of the future, whatever that is, if it's a product, if it's a solution, or it's a whatever, who will be most impacted by the future that you're creating? And are you holding space for their voice to be in the room? And when we're just going full speed ahead, you don't have time to get a multitude of different voices in there. And I believe that, again, that collaborative approach to design of futures really matters. And we got to slow down to be more collaborative sometimes.
100%. A lot of what you're saying is reminding me of a past guest who really expressed the importance, especially in a team on a family business where there's going to be a lot of people at the table that are not family, and the
Hmm.
importance of being heard. Obviously,
Hmm.
two things why people leave: if they're not feel like they're not being valued, but also if they feel like they're not being heard. And after a
Hmm.
while, they're like, okay, I'm done. You know.
Yeah. And when you're just rushing and rushing and rushing and the fastest. And I think that that comes down to kind of like what are the decisions, like what are the values around decision making? What is the
Mm,
culture within an organization? What's the culture within the family? And what I love about family businesses at our core and our heart, we're thinking multi-generational, right? We're not thinking about next, quarter's profit and loss. And so that means we actually need to show that if we slow down a little bit more, we're being a little bit more thoughtful and mindful to
mm,
hold space for that. And so I think that's another thing. And it's hard though, because there is the feeling like you don't want to be left behind when the rest of the world is going so fast. But I really do truly believe that it's going to be a competitive advantage when people just take a beat and
understood.
an intentional slowdown, not just dragging our feet because we're nervous about learning the next new thing. But
I think that's a great takeaway for not only our listeners, but for someone like me who sometimes likes to throttle down and
yeah.
take a pause a little bit more often. So thank you for that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to talk to you about the family business perception study.
Hmm.
I read it. I think it's fascinating. I think it was a fascinating
Thank you.
approach. So before we dig into that, what prompted you to undertake that to begin with? And what was the question or questions you were really most hoping that it would uncover, solve, or answer?
Yeah. So obviously we're a research company, but for a long time, Jenny, my sister, would say that her like mission in life was to change the narrative of family businesses in America. And she would say it all the time. She's like, this is my soapbox. And I said, well, what is the perception of family businesses in America? She's like, well, I think da 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 da. And I said, well, at a certain point, just as we advise our clients, we need to test our hypothesis and test our assumptions. And are there different perspectives that we're not thinking about? And so this is actually our second annual study. So we did our first one last year, and it's just been super interesting. And so I guess the biggest driving behind it, honestly, is we think family businesses are super cool, but I actually was just wondering, does the general public care about them as much as we do? Does that matter? Should it show up in our storytelling? What do they think about us? Like,
Hmm.
and how do we integrate that into some of it from, again, a consumer standpoint and employee standpoint, those types of things? Or really, does that not matter and we need to highlight different parts of who we are? So really it was just an opportunity. And we're also ones who we don't like to do research just to do research sake. If there's existing research out there, we want to be able to leverage that first and foremost. And there's a tremendous amount of family business research done in academia and different areas, but it's generally done internally on itself. So I'm sure you've gotten some of those studies, right?
Yeah.
Asking family business CEOs what their own thoughts are and those things. But we couldn't really find any extensive research that was actually asking the general population what they thought about family businesses. So we were really excited to be able to do it. And it's just been super interesting, you know?
I think it was a brilliant approach, and you're
Thank you.
100% dead on in that. Yeah, within circles,
Mhm.
of course, we think it's important to be a family business. We're a bit biased
We're
in
just
that
cheering
regard.
on for ourselves.
Uh,
I mean, I'm going to still think we're super cool no matter what, but the research now backs it up. So like I feel validated, but
so one of the things in the research that really caught my attention is that when it comes to trust, those respondents overwhelmingly said, yeah, they trust family businesses, but what they often seem to underestimate was how innovative or ambitious they truly are. So
Mhm.
why do you think that gap exists, that perception gap, that okay, you're trustworthy and you're a good neighbor and you're good for the community and a good employer, but when it comes to ambition or innovation or forward thinking, not so good. Why do you think that perception exists?
I believe that we are extremely good about talking about our heritage, our longevity, values, tradition. Those words sometimes can be considered opposite of innovation. Innovation is new, cutting edge, evolution, change, moving with the market. And so in a way, where many family businesses are extremely humble. We don't share a lot of stories in the way of like how we're changing over time, right? It's just that we've been here for a long time and we're not really leaning into those opportunities for storytelling. And I think that a lot of it comes down to just the way that we need to be better about advocating for ourselves and talking about, sharing a bit more about what we're doing. When you think about a business, even like us being second generation, I've been to some of these family business conferences and I've met like the sixth, seventh, eighth generation family businesses. If you stop and think about how long that business has been around and what they've done, they are 100% and innovative. Even if their product that they're offering is still the same, like even like a radio flyer. I love being able to talk with their CEO. I've met him a few times, and that product, the red wagon, those types of things, it's the same thing, but they're so innovative in what they do, right? Because when you're around for that long, you have to change in so many ways. But what we do is we talk about how we've been the anchor in the community. We've done, again, we don't advocate for ourselves to show this really amazing things that we've been doing and how we innovate along the way. And maybe we may not be the most cutting edge in terms of the use of technology or the this or the that, but we are always having to evolve the way that we're doing it to be able to be around for 100+ years, you know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. Do you think, on the basis of your research, that the family-governed business needs to maybe overemphasize their position on innovation and overemphasize more of a progressive stance that they're taking either with the business, with technology, with the marketplace, with invention and new ideas? Do you think that they have to kind of overstate it to
I think that
overcome
we
it?
have to be intentional, and I think we also have to be in alignment with our authenticity, right? Because that's like one thing too when we've talked about this. If you're not actually doing certain, like leaning in on a certain type of innovation or technology, don't try to own that space if it's not authentic, right? Because one of the things about family businesses is that we really are very authentic. But when we talk about the heritage, also talk about the experimentation that we've done. When we talk about values, also talk about how we invest in moving forward and like sustaining ourselves for the next 10 to 20 years. When we talk about longevity, talk about what we've learned over time and those lessons that we've had to do to evolve, right? So I think it could be a yes and. So we don't have to swing all the way over here and stop talking about these certain parts. I think it's trying to open it up again to actually be able to talk about the whole picture that we've done. Even, and again, this has to be authentic in how we're doing it, but talk a little bit about the messiness, talk about some of the ups and the downs, right? I mean, from a marketing standpoint today, consumers and employees and just people, we're leaning in. We want more authenticity with AI out there and kind of like some of the garbly gunk that can get out there on the internet and like AI writing posts and all that kind of stuff. We want to actually see more of the messiness of like business and how hard certain kinds of things are and like what we're doing and a bit more vulnerability. Again, it has to be something that we feel comfortable in doing, but I do believe that there's a lot more to the story that we should be owning and sharing for sure.
For sure, absolutely. And I've also noticed, and maybe you found this to be true, less so for us because at the core we're a marketing services firm. So, but a lot of family businesses are very humble,
Very humble. Yeah.
and so almost to the point of understating. Uh,
100%.
when you look back at their history, it's like, hey, we pioneered this in the 40s, then we did this in the 50s, and then the 80s, and most recently, and they've been pioneering and innovating across their entire span and multiple generations. Yet they don't say that.
Mm,
And a lot of times it seems like there's almost like this, oh, it seems like we're being overly boastful about
totally.
ourselves, and that's not the way we behave. And I'm kind of wondering where that's coming from. If that maybe was the previous generation says, no, we don't do it that way,
I
or
think so. I
yeah.
mean, a few things that like we've kind of had to change. This is more on like a community side of things. And one of the things that came out of our study last year that I found was actually interesting was commitment to the community or how we show up in the community actually rated lower than other types of business. Like it wasn't seen as a higher attribute. And that I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I do believe that, so this is different than innovation, but I think it gives a good example. I do believe that prior generations gave anonymously, quietly, those types of things. And I know our parents did. But at a certain point, Jenny and I actually said, we want to be able to actually show the impact that our business is doing in the community. One, to be able to show that a small and mighty firm like ours is doing a lot in the community. So if we as a small and mighty can do it, we want to help inspire businesses all across our community to be able to do it. And then two, from an employment standpoint, employees today want to work for brands that there's values alignment. They want to know that there's something bigger than profit. And so we wanted to actually tell our team that the only way that we're being able to give back to our community is because of the contributions that they're helping to be able to do. And we created a plan that we actually were able to learn about what causes were important to our employees. And we gave then in their we helped give back to every one of the nonprofits that really spoke to their hearts. And so it was really showing like the more that we're all rallying together, the bigger impact we can make within our communities. But that was a fundamental shift. Like our dad never said a single word out loud to like the employees or, out there to be able to say who they were giving to and the contributions that they were making, which were substantial at that time. But I just believe like if we do it, it all comes down to intent, right? I always say, like, I have a sign on my door to my office, assume positive intent. Our intent is not to be like, hey, look at us, we're super amazing. My intent is to actually inspire others to be able to give in the capacity that they're able to give to.
Hmm.
And so I think that it is I think it could be based on different generations and then needing to then do that deeper work to kind of like the underneath the surface of saying, why are we highlighting this? Why are we showing this? Well, from an innovation standpoint, if we think about it in terms of attracting top talent, if people don't see us as innovative, but younger employees who have an amazing skill set want to work for a firm that's super innovative, we are then starting to do ourselves a disservice by being super humble. And at a
Yeah.
certain point, we're actually harming ourselves by staying super humble. When we could be like one of the most innovative companies in the community, we're just not telling anybody. And so we have to just kind of, again, shift some of those assumptions or limiting beliefs or mental models to think about how might this actually start being a disservice than
Mm.
like it, than the way that we thought that it was seen before.
Well said. Well said. So another piece of the research that you broke down was talking to people and asking them. Some actually worked inside a family business that you
Mm-hmm.
pulled, and had a bit of a different viewpoint than those that were on the outside, had not worked for a
Mm-hmm.
family-run business. So, can you unpack that for us a little bit, Katie? What were your findings there, and what did that tell you about perhaps how family businesses are communicating to
Mm-hmm.
that, next great employee, next great talent that might come on board?
Yeah. Well, I think you were alluding to it earlier, right? Perception's reality. And so I think the big thing too is in people who do work within family businesses, they did rate things higher where there's obviously sometimes, there's more family drama. There can be different types of, kind of issues or challenges around succession or leadership or culture or those types of things. But then they also do see some of the amazing work that's being done because we're in internally. So I think that the opportunity is one is how do we talk to our non-family members who are non-family employees and really try to get them to be outside ambassadors for us to be able to share that they are then whether we like it or not. So again, with family business, there's some chatter among the family sometimes and our employees see that, so we need to own that part of our story as well, and we may actually have to address that even within our storytelling that we do externally, right? And we have to own the fact of there is opportunities to move up the ladder because a story could be that there isn't opportunities to become higher level management or executive team. The assumption is it's all going to go to family. But if most of your executive team, except for like 2 employees, are non-family members, you should be talking about that more, right? So I think the biggest thing is realizing like one is how do we get our employees to be champions for us externally and get them to help share a different version of what that perception could be for people who don't come here and understand that they are going to have a little bit of the behind the curtain and we do have to just own some of that as well. So when we think about communication, it's a mix between internal and external communication. You
Mm.
do have to also remember that our non-family employees are out there talking to people, right? And so we actually need to own up to certain types of things that are happening internally and think through like our communication inside the building as well.
Mm. So far, this conversation has been a trip down memory lane of all the mistakes that I've made. And if I ever wrote a
100%.
book, I think it would be like mistakes I made that Katie Rucker could have helped me avoid if I met her sooner.
Oh, listen, I've got a million of them. I mean, I talk about the messy middle all the time. We all got it. Like, none of us have done it perfectly.
So, well, thank you. So let's talk about NextGen Collaborative for a moment.
Yeah.
Through that work there, you spent a lot of time with now the rising family
Mhm.
business leaders, the future family business leaders. So when you look at that population and the work that you're doing there, um, if you boil it down to one or maybe two leadership traits,
Mhm.
what are the ones that would be most important for this rising generation to possess and to demonstrate?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I really feel like a big one is around curiosity. That's a word and kind of a value. And I talked about that. That's something that came from our dad. I think that openness to want to understand others' perspectives. So if we're coming up as the rising gen, not coming in, which I think we've all been guilty as we come in of like, I want to prove myself, I want to something. So how do we actually lead with humility and curiosity first and foremost, learn from other people, remain curious to be able to see and learn different perspectives and different viewpoints, I think is a big one. I think that remembering that we don't have to have all the answers, and it is hard as a rising gen. We have more eyes on us, whether we like it or not. We are inside of a fishbowl. And so we have to also have thick skin and like realize that it's going to be a little bit tougher for us than it might be for other people. And so I think that's then where that humility is going to come in. There was definitely decisions that Jenny and I made that then either we could have just kind of like slithered back and not whatever, but we would just like pull a meeting. I'm like, man, we were trying something new that you guys all did not totally support. And that one just didn't go at all well. Like you knew exactly what you were trying to tell us not to do, right? We just had to own it. And I think through that actually helped us earn the respect a little bit faster than if we had played some different types of games. So I would say kind of a few of those the traits just at that top of my head would be curiosity and humility would be two really big ones for people to lean into.
That really resonates because some of the best like next gen leaders we've had on the show. So unlike what I did, I think I was more of like the cannonball in the ship when I came
Right.
but in lieu of doing that, they said, you know what? Let me watch and observe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just see
Mm-hmm.
what I see and let me formulate some thoughts. And then I'm going to start asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is this way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, have you ever considered this?
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't you go that way? So I think that curiosity and as it manifests in observation early on allows them, you know, the space and time
Mm-hmm.
to enter the organization, you know, with a sense of clarity, with a sense of maybe you know, peer respect, and
Mm-hmm.
then you know, if they then decide it's time to be the cannonball on the ship, so be it. But
Oh, totally. Because at some point we got to like do, make some changes, right? But I think it also is as we're coming these, and it's how we finesse this. And these are some of the things that we do through some of the coaching is also finding opportunities to rally some other people together to be curious with you, right? Like, could we have to start, I mean, this is again the futures thing that like the future of our business is not most likely going to be impacted by our competitors today. Like, but the potential that's going to like rock the ship is going to come out of somewhere that we are like least expecting it. So how do we create a curiosity club and like collect different ideas together and share them, right? So that then actually people are learning together and being curious together. So again, it's not just that you're coming in and asking, why is it done this way? Because listen, I was totally guilty of saying, well, why do you do it that way? Depending, which is then why you combine that with humility, is how you actually deliver those questions. That can come across as quite accusatory. But really, I was like, I'm just curious and I'm asking why. But I realized I had to then learn a little bit about my own delivery mechanisms that weren't as polished as I would have liked them in the beginning.
yeah, I think I learned that one as well the hard way.
This
I tried to talk to
is
personnel
a
the way
therapy session, Ed. I
yeah,
totally get
yeah.
it.
I remember the week. It was a week where I was like, I'm going to talk to, you know, employees the way my dad does. And in that week, two people quit. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so
Yep.
that's what happens when I do that.
Yep. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay, point to self.
can't, can't do that anymore.
Yep. Yep.
One of the nice things about being in a family business and a smaller one is, you know, when you hit, you know, fall on your face, you figure it out pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, there's no hiding.
Yeah. Um, Another theme that you know, and this also comes from you and your work with next gen leaders,
Mhm.
and I love this so much. Is this idea of helping them create their own narrative instead of just inheriting one. And I know
Mhm.
we've been kind of touching around that subject,
Mhm.
but talk for a moment about why that distinction is so important in your work.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that's through like my own, it's it really is coming to this other side of like my own like lived experience and through Jenny and I. But you know, when we went through like our ownership transfer and certain different kinds of things, it was like, here's this idea, and this is kind of, and so we were like, oh, okay, we're gonna do that. And then again, like I said, I then felt like I was living someone else's life. And I think that I always say we get one chance at this amazing, beautiful life, right? And we got to have something that jazzes us up to be able to get out of bed. And the only person that's going to be able to really tell you what that is your own self. And taking some time to be able to, and I always say it should be a living, breathing kind of document, air quote that, because it's going to ebb and flow. But what are your own hopes and dreams and desires, not tied just to this business, but in life in general? Like when you get to the end, you can look back and say, man, I'm so glad I did X, Y, and Z. And this is what makes me unique. This is what I bring to the table and all that kind of stuff. And when we can feel that we have an idea. And again, that idea, my mind's changed a million times, right? Because the farther you live, the more experiences you have, it grows and changes. And that's why it needs to be a living, breathing document. But I really am inspired to be able to help Rising Gen and Next Gens to spend time thinking about that so that then when they get to the table and they start mapping out what their future within the family business is, they can actually also rally for and fight for that core version of themselves that they want to be able to create a future that can hold space for yes and. Yes, I want to be able to lead this business and I want to be able to carry on the family legacy. And for me, I want to be a home and like the kindergarten room mom. And I want to be able to eventually, like my kids are now like high school and college. I want to be an active, engaged community member and on boards of nonprofits because it fills a certain part of me. I want to go on big adventures. I took like a 3-week sabbatical and went to Everest. I want to do all these things and I want to lead the family business. But if we don't advocate and fight for our own vision and dreams, nobody else is going to. And I think that's the biggest thing is that so many times, whether even in the family business or not, people move up this ladder because it's what they always thought they were supposed to do. And that's an inherited version of the future, whether it's a family business or not, because someone told them this is what you do. You work harder, you get the promotion. You work harder, you get the promotion. All of a sudden you're in that corner office and you were like, I think I'm in the wrong building. This isn't anything I wanted to do, right? So we inherited a version of the future, whether that's family business or not. And so that's where we need to actually be active, engaged agents over our own lives and then keep that as our North Star and then bring that to the table. Because I also truly believe if we're like taking over a business from our parents just want us to be happy. Like literally, our parents are not saying, I want you to do exactly what I did so that you could be like a complete replica of me. Our parents just genuinely want us to be happy. And if we can go in and give some random ideas and say, I have no idea how this is going to work because I know it's fundamentally different than how you did it before. But these are things that I truly believe at some point in my life I want to be able to do. And I want to create a version of the future that allows me to do both. And I hope that we can do that. I do believe that the leading generation or the prior generation is going to feel more open to doing that if we had put some thought and really created an intentional plan. Sorry, I can get super excited about that. So I went a little bit on a soapbox there.
I'm excited with you because I love the way you framed it, because, in many ways, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking forming their own narrative is really the beginnings of starting to formulate their own vision.
Mm-hmm.
Vision's a much loftier idea, especially for maybe a 20-something who's just entering, and, as I'm thinking about what you're saying in your remarks and thinking about, I remember, I laid down my first vision statement when I was in my young 20s and I was cleaning out the office and I came across and I'm like, wow, what kind of drugs was I on? But then as I started to unpack it, like, okay, there was some
Yeah.
foundations of an idea here that came to fruition. It was just very crude,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And I think another like way, and so it just kind of depends on how we want to say it, like create the narrative or the framework for the next year's chapter. And we think about our whole life as our life story when we look back and we think of these chapters, right? Because again, different ideas come that like some of the things I've done now in my life are like never were on my radar. But I'm so glad that I opened myself up to be able to say yes to them. And I created a structure within my family business that allows me to do some of these crazy adventures. Because in the end, it actually isn't about the what specifically, which then kind of comes back to us pulling the threads of our dad's like core values of that curiosity and these like problem solver and stuff like that. For me, adventure is like one of like my core driving values. And so I need then opportunity to be able to lean into things like that.
Mm, mm. So we kind of touched on this around the subject of innovation, but
Mm,
this topic has come up in just about every single one of our guest episodes, AI,
mm.
and how AI is changing the way organizations gather insight, communicate, make decisions, get things done. To what extent, when you look at the family businesses that you work with and you interface with, um, you know, do you feel that they are embracive of AI? Do you feel that they're standoffish? Is it all over the board? Like where are they overestimating, underestimating, or where do they have it just right when it comes to technology in general, but especially AI?
Probably all over, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's probably any conversation that you're having, whether that's family businesses, if we're all being like truly honest, right? I mean, some days I feel like I think I'm getting it, and then I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I bet every person, if they actually, because it's all so new and it's happening and changing so fast, and it's we also have like we got to do our day to day and our normal day to day while we're also innovating at the same time. I think about things through small and mid-sized businesses just because that's like we're a small business and that's kind of more of the like realm that we do. The power that I think about AI is actually it's democratizing, capabilities. It's giving us small and mighty opportunities to be able to do things that we may not have had access to that these larger companies or larger organizations could. So I think that there's a super cool opportunity for it. Putting my foresight and futurist hat on, I believe the strength of family business has always been anchored in the human side of who we are that comes across in culture, comes across in our connection to community, comes across in how we represent ourselves with our customer bases. And so there is an opportunity to play into that strength, and we have to walk the line cautiously to not lose what has always made us special by leaning too hard into AI and technology, right? So we can do it in the same way, but we got to make sure that we haven't lost a little part of it, right? But I do
Yeah.
think it's across the board right now. I mean, and again, I will openly share the messy middle of our family businesses. I We've never been one to be at the cutting or like the bleeding edge of technology. And I think family businesses, because we don't want to, I always say like, if we fail at something, I didn't just screw up for myself. I actually just totally blew up my dad's whole entire legacy in life, right? Like we carry the weight
Mm,
of stewardship. And so we are slower to the game. We have to get out of our own way at a certain point so that we don't fall behind. And let some of what maybe had been our competitive advantages to get bypassed by other competitors. So I think it's a little bit of all of it. I don't know if that
yeah.
answers anything, but I think
And
we're all in the messiness of learning how to like deal with this technology stuff right now.
and I think in terms of how other technologies have played out, I think we are literally in the messy middle because you start from a position of uninformed optimism, like AI is going to change the world, to uninformed pessimism. It's going to eradicate 50% of the world's jobs,
Yeah,
and eventually we'll get to a point of informed realism. Okay, here's what it can do. Here's what it can't do. Here's where HI blends with AI the best,
totally.
and here's how we go forward. So we're not quite there yet. We're still in that messy middle, I think, literally, and
Yeah.
we're finding our way. I think you hit it dead on. I think a lot of us, whether we're second, third, fourth, or beyond, do see ourselves as stewards of the
Mhm.
business, and um, sometimes that sit back and wait position is not so much from being averse to being progressive or being
Correct.
opportunistic, but also playing, and I think this is a point of view that we share with a lot. We play the long game. We're
Yeah.
not like private equity where it's about a 3 to 5 year cycle spin. No, we're
Mhm.
playing for decades. We're playing for maybe the next generation to be or not be, depending on
Mhm.
how they align or don't with the family, in a ready position to potentially take leadership. So much longer view, which most certainly impacts how decisions are made, how growth is assessed, how risk is assessed, how investments
Yeah.
are assessed. Everything is looked at through that very long lens. So as a result, I think we behave a little differently than some of the other
Mhm.
business models out there. I don't know if
Yeah.
you'd agree with that or not.
Yeah, and one thing that I hope would be maybe bit of a differentiator, kind of even playing off of what you were saying there of like potentially, like 50% of the workforce is like eradicated. Or I think about like some of the companies, so these would be like more of like these bigger, tech companies or whoever's out there, just really doing massive reduction of head count because we're replacing people, right? With that, I'm looking at it of saying, how can I integrate and help empower my team to learn at the same time? So my hope would be, because I do believe a differentiator in family businesses is I believe, care differently potentially about our employees. Like we have team members who've been with us for 30 years. Like a lot of family businesses have multi-generational, so families working within the families, right? It's not
Yeah,
only the family
yeah.
that owns it, their families do too. That my hope is that family businesses are not going to be as quick to reduce head count because I brought technology in to be able to replace them. It actually is, how do we do things to integrate it into an existing system and be able to up level people at the same time as integrating it in versus replace with technology. And I always look at things too as, if I can help teach team members how to do things, and then eventually, if they aren't here anymore, I want to leave people better and with better opportunities when they move on to the next stepping stone as well. So I do think that that is a differentiator of family businesses, the way that we look at and care about our employees. And so my hope is, with all this new technology coming in, that we could be looking at it as a way that we can all be learning together instead of learning at the expense of other people.
True, true. And by the way, 50% of the workforce has not been eradicated. If anything, hiring continues to tick up.
It's a wild, it depends on, like, I swear, all day, every day, you could read different kind of stats and numbers. And I don't think that that's what's going to happen.
Me
Um,
neither. Me neither. Me
I
neither.
think yeah, we're just in a wild time right now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Of course, there's always extremists, just like many years ago with the onset of the internet. Oh, that means printed material is dead, and you'll
Mhm.
never have a printed page ever again.
Yeah,
Uh, Seems like there's still printers around, and I see stuff printed all the time. So
totally.
that didn't quite pan out. So tapping into your futurist mindset for a moment, when when you look out to the future, what's one assumption that you think family business should start challenging today if they want to be relevant over the next decade? Let's take the long view.
Yeah.
What's the
I
number
mean,
one?
I think, which is kind of what we've been talking about here too, is that the longevity is evident that the current model will continue to work.
Mhm.
Um, Especially with businesses that have been around. Even if we talk to our dad, and my parents, my mom was an entrepreneur as well, so we grew up with two entrepreneurial parents. Even they say today, like, we've been through some times too, what we're going through and experiencing right now is fundamentally different than I think anything we've ever experienced. We have been through economic downturns. We have been through different technology changes. There's a lot of meta moments happening at the same time.
Mm,
And I always kind of say, we have to release the holds um, on things and be open to evolving at a more rapid pace than we are maybe comfortable with and that we
mm,
have had to do in the past. I
yeah.
do believe we have to remember that the times are moving so much faster than it ever has before. And
Mm,
and we have to keep that long-term goal in mind, but that doesn't mean, and this is a lot of what we talk about, it doesn't also mean like kind of hunker down and stay the course, because when you hunker down and try to stay the course for a little while, the tides are still moving you. And when those winds pick back up again, you could be going in a totally different direction. So we need to be keeping our eye on that North Star and like pulling ourselves towards that preferred future. And we might have to try things differently faster than we're comfortable with. But that then is like, how do we go back to that original founding entrepreneur spirit? Like, every family businesses that started with grit, perseverance, hustle, that determination, that like, I got to put food on my table and we're going to make this thing happen. And we, I think, kind of have to go back to that level of grit right now and like look at things through this lens of like, now's the time to kind of, which is funny because it's the opposite of like what I was saying. Now's the time to speed certain things up. I do believe in
Yeah.
slowing it down in the decision making, and I think that you can balance between them. I think sometimes family businesses move a little slower than what may be needed in today's times.
Yeah, part and parcel to that, I think. And if there was one, if you think about some of the defining movements, elements of this current generation in family business, I mean, yes, we're in this age of AI. We just came off the heels of what? A global disease, a global pandemic. You know, who saw that? I remember shelter in place. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I don't even
No.
know how to do that. So
That's
if
not like duck
anything,
and cover for us, at least here in Southern California. Get under there for the earthquake. It's not the same.
if anything, I think it's taught this generation, our generation, that agility is important and
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really powerful point, and one of the tools that we talk about in foresight and futures thinking is the horizon scanning, right? It's thinking about what's happening out there. We use the STEEP framework, so social, technology, economic, environmental, and political. AI right now is getting all the talk. But as you just said, wherever COVID would have fit in there, social, environmental, all that stuff, if we're not kind of continuing to scan and continuing to think, the next thing, just because AI is moving super fast doesn't mean that all these other things aren't happening in the world. And they're just going to come as like, I always use that like boat, though I'm not a big boater, but that comes in that like that next huge wave is going to feel like it's coming out of nowhere. But we do also need to remember that the world isn't only right now focused on AI. Like there's a lot of things happening, and it can be tiring keeping your pulse and your finger on all these things. But the more we're looking up and looking out and like scanning across the way, and then this is where the curiosity, like I was saying, a curiosity club, collect ideas. Every day, each and every one of us is reading things, listening to things, all of this stuff. Have somewhere, if you're in office or if you're virtual, but if you're in office for 1 week, have all of your employees come in and write a little sticky note. I mean, I have like a million sticky notes, a little sticky note, and stick it up on the wall of something that they read about or heard about that seems super random, right? And then at the end of the week, bring in lunch and then just look at all of these sticky notes and start trying to figure out, how are they interconnected? What are the themes? What are the patterns? What are the trends that are starting to bubble up? I guarantee it's not going to just be AI. And then spend another week or something in your curiosity club saying, what would happen if that became like really big and like really a huge impact? Like, what would our business do? Right? That's like these playing out these different scenarios. And that's that collaborative part of getting different voices and ideas that are floating out there.
Mm.
So we just have to think differently with the assumption, and what do we need to challenge is that old saying of what got us here isn't going to get us there.
For sure, for sure. So if you were to look maybe not so far out and more of the
Mm-hmm.
here and now, and the work you're doing now, the family businesses you're interacting with, what's exciting you most about the near term for family business in the here and now?
I truly believe, kind of going back to the beginning, I believe that if we could be leaning into better storytelling, there is a huge opportunity for family businesses. People are craving from the brands that they buy from or the brands that they're working for a certain type of relationship with authenticity and vulnerability and like all the things that make family businesses awesome. We just need to get a little less humble and certain things and start like tooting our own horns. And so it's partnering with people like you from a marketing standpoint, PR, storytelling. I just think we need to get better about it because there is so much opportunity for family businesses to just really take off.
Agreed, agreed. Last question, and I hate to end it here because I feel like we could talk for hours, if not days. But
Yeah.
um, if any of our listeners wanted to connect with you to learn more about your story, your journey, or the work you're doing at MacKenzie or NextGen Collaborative, or even the Family Business Perception Study, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, so I'm super active on LinkedIn, so please find me on LinkedIn. Always love to connect there. And then really MacKenzie Corp, and I know that there'll be a link in the show notes. If you pop over there, we have, if you can download our report, as you said. There's also some articles that we've written around how to translate the data into some marketing strategy ideas. And then I have some information there if you're interested in learning a little bit more about futures thinking and what's like a quick on-ramp to be able to do kind of like a 5-day quick email series to be able to learn a little bit more about foresight and futures thinking.
Awesome, awesome. And for our listeners, I would sincerely encourage you, and it will be in the show notes, to check out the research study, because I think there's some great takeaways for all of our listenership for sure. So to
Yeah.
wrap it up, Katie, what really stands out is this reminder that the future doesn't simply happen to family business. It's shaped by the questions leaders ask, by the curiosity, the assumptions they're willing to challenge, and the stories they choose to tell about who they are and where they're headed and
Mhm.
why they are, with a little less humility,
Yeah.
progressive, innovative. And perhaps the great takeaways from the research you've done is that family businesses already possess something that many organizations spend years
Mhm.
aspiring to and never quite get there, and that's trust, deep
Yeah.
trust. And the opportunity now is to make sure that that trust is accompanied by visible stories of innovation, growth, and forward-looking leadership. So, Katie, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, your research. And again, we've been speaking with Katie Rucker, second generation owner of MacKenzie and founder of NextGen Collaborative. And I'm your host, Ed Delia. And this has been another episode of Growing Up B2B. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Katie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into Growing Up B2B. To explore more episodes and insights, visit podcast.delianet.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Having worked with hundreds of family-led businesses across my career, and being a second-generation leader myself, I'm on a mission to help every family business I meet achieve next-level growth for their organization. So feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's support each other. You can also find out more about my company at delianet.com. Again, I'm your host, Ed Delia, and thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.